The billionaire alpha rejected his omega as worthless, then a DNA test revealed the truth. They tell you biology is destiny. If you present as an omega, your worth is measured in compliance and fertility. Caleb learned early that the only way to survive was to hide both. He spent 4 years buried under engine grease and cheap suppressants, raising a son the world didn't know existed. Then Alessandro Reed, the alpha billionaire who owned half the city, walked into his garage, called him a worthless roadblock, and accidentally looked his own son in the eyes. The transmission on the '98 Ford was shot. Caleb knew it, the customer knew it, and the rusted bolt shredding the skin off Caleb's knuckles certainly knew it. He cursed, a short clipped sound that echoed in the cavernous drafty space of Miller's auto. He wiped a mix of sweat and grease from his forehead with the back of a gloved hand. The air in the garage was thick with the smell of old oil, exhaust, and the faint bitter chemical tang of the heat suppressants Caleb dry swallowed every morning. They made his joints ache, they made his stomach churn, but they kept his scent flat. To the mechanics around him, he was just Caleb, a beta as far as they were concerned, a quiet guy who worked double shifts and brought his 4-year-old kid to work when daycare fell through. "Hey, Caleb!" Danny yelled from the front office. "There's some suit here to see you. Says he owns the building." Caleb's jaw tightened. He set down his wrench and pulled off his gloves, flexing his raw knuckles. The building had changed hands 3 times in the last 2 years. Each new owner came in, took one look at the oil-stained floor and aging equipment, and talked about redevelopment. Each time, Caleb held his breath and waited for the eviction notice. He walked through the bay doors into the cramped office, wiping his hands on a rag that had seen better days. The man standing there was dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Caleb made in a year. Sharp jawline, dark hair swept back, eyes the color of winter steel. His presence filled the small room, and Caleb felt something primal itch at the back of his skull. Alpha. A powerful one. "The name's Reed," the man said, not offering a hand. "Alessandro Reed. My company acquired this property last month." Caleb kept his face neutral. "I heard. We're still waiting on the new lease terms." Reed's lip curled. "There won't be new terms. The building's scheduled for demolition in 60 days. I'm here to inform the tenants personally." His gaze swept over Caleb with undisguised disdain. "Though I'm not sure what use this eyesore serves. A mechanic shop in the middle of prime real estate." "We have a lease," Caleb said flatly. "Signed by the previous owner. It runs for another 18 months. That lease is being challenged. The previous owner had no authority to extend it without corporate approval." Reed pulled a folder from his briefcase. "Your options are to vacate by the deadline or face legal action." Caleb felt the familiar cold settle in his chest. The fear he'd learned to swallow. "I have a business to run. Employees. My son. Your personal circumstances are irrelevant." Reed's voice was ice. "This is a business decision. I suggest you start looking for alternative premises." Something in Caleb snapped. He'd been pushed around his whole life. By his family, by the system, by every alpha who thought his biology gave him the right to dictate. He stepped forward, close enough to see the flecks of gray in Reed's cold eyes. "You walk into my garage, a place I've worked 14-hour days to keep running, and you call it an eyesore. You dismiss my lease, my employees, my son, like we're nothing." Caleb's voice was low and steady. "Let me tell you something. I've rebuilt transmissions in sub-zero weather. I've slept in this office when I couldn't afford rent. I've raised a child alone while the world told me I wasn't worth anything." He planted his hands on the cluttered desk between them. "You don't scare me, Mr. Reed." Alessandro's eyes flickered. Something passed across his face, not quite surprise, not quite respect. Then his nostrils flared almost imperceptibly. His gaze sharpened. "You're not a beta," he said quietly. Caleb went cold. "Excuse me?" "That chemical smell. I've encountered it before. Alessandro stepped closer, and Caleb's instincts screamed at him to back away. You're an Omega. High-dose suppressants. The kind that destroy your body. Get out, Caleb said, his voice cracking despite himself. The suppression is impressive, I'll give you that. But it's also illegal. Black market pharmaceuticals. I could have you arrested. You have no proof. I don't need proof. Alessandro's tone was clinical. I need a reason to believe you're not trying to extort my company. An Omega with an invalid lease claim? That's a headache I don't need. But it's also leverage. He opened his briefcase again. I'll make you an offer. Vacate the property within 30 days, and I won't pursue the matter. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you an exit. Alessandro's eyes swept over Caleb again, evaluating, calculating. You're clearly struggling. A single Omega in this line of work, raising a child alone, injecting yourself with poison to hide what you are. He shook his head. That's not living. That's survival. And the way you're going about it, you won't survive much longer. Caleb's blood ran hot. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know Omegas. I've seen what happens when they try to fight their nature. It doesn't end well. Alessandro snapped his briefcase shut. 30 days. Cooperate, and I'll even provide a small relocation package. It's more than you deserve. He turned to leave, and Caleb's vision went red. He grabbed Alessandro's arm, a mistake, he knew instantly. The Alpha's body went rigid, and Caleb felt the warning pulse of pheromones in the air. He released the arm like it had burned him. Take your hand off me, Alessandro said, his voice dangerously quiet. Take your ultimatum and shove it, Caleb said through gritted teeth. I'll fight this in court. I'll contact the media. I'll make sure everyone knows how Alessandro Reed treats the tenants he bulldozes. Good luck with that. Alessandro paused at the door. 30 days. I'll have my legal team send the paperwork. He walked out, and Caleb watched him go through the grimy office window, watched him slide into a sleek black car that cost more than Caleb's entire life. The engine purred and the car pulled away, and Caleb was alone with his shaking hands and his racing heart. He sank into the worn office chair and pressed his palms to his eyes. The suppressants were wearing off. He could feel it in the heat creeping up his spine, the telltale ache in his glands. He needed another dose. Mama? Caleb looked up. Leo stood in the doorway of the office, clutching his stuffed wolf and blinking sleepily. His dark hair was a mess, his pajama shirt untucked. He'd been napping on the cot in the back room. Hey, buddy. Caleb forced a smile. Did you have a good nap? Leo toddled over and climbed into his lap. He was small for 4, wiry and quick, with Caleb's sharp cheekbones and eyes that sometimes seemed too old for his face. He pressed his small hand to Caleb's cheek. You sad? No, baby. Mama's not sad. Caleb buried his nose in Leo's hair and breathed in his clean scent, letting it ground him. Everything's fine. Leo's brow furrowed in that serious way he had. The bad man left? Caleb froze. You saw him? He was loud. Leo snuggled closer. I don't like him. Neither do I. Caleb pressed a kiss to Leo's forehead. But he's gone now. It's okay. Leo was quiet for a moment, his small fingers fiddling with Caleb's shirt. Then he looked up again. He smelled funny. Did he? Like fire. And cold. Leo wrinkled his nose. I don't like it. Caleb felt his stomach drop. Leo had inherited more than just his father's features. The alpha traits were already manifesting, heightened senses, a stubborn streak, a nose that could pick out scents Caleb had been trained to ignore. Caleb had never told Leo about his father. He'd never told anyone. He's not important, Caleb said firmly. Now come on. Let's get you some dinner. The next morning, Caleb made a decision. He wouldn't run. He'd fought too hard and too long to let some suits steal everything he'd built. He called his lawyer, a tired public defender who handled cases for the garage on the side, and started the paperwork to challenge the eviction. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleepless nights, of Leo asking why Mama was so tired, of Caleb working until his hands bled. 3 weeks of watching his savings dwindle as legal fees mounted. Then the letter came. Caleb opened it in the garage, still covered in grease, and read it twice. His lawyer had found an angle: the previous owner's lease was valid, and Reed Corporation was in violation. A hearing was scheduled. Caleb had a chance. He should have felt relieved. Instead, he felt watched. The black car had been appearing more frequently. Sometimes it would drive past the garage slowly. Sometimes it would park across the street, just out of sight. Caleb told himself it was coincidence. He told himself he was being paranoid. Then the car pulled into the garage itself. Alessandro Reed stepped out, and Caleb's heart went cold. The Alfa looked different today, more casual, sleeves rolled up, jacket off. But his eyes were the same. Winter steel. Calculating. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Alessandro said, with no apology in his voice. "I have a proposition for you. I already have a lawyer. This isn't about the lease." Alessandro walked deeper into the garage, glancing at the cars on the lifts. "I've had my team look into you. Caleb, no last name on record. No birth certificate after age 17. No medical records. You've done an impressive job of erasing yourself. You had no right." "Wait. There's more." Alessandro turned to face him. "I also ran a DNA comparison. From the sample you left on the cup in my office. You know, when you grabbed my arm." Caleb went cold. "What are you talking about?" "There's a child. A boy, 4 years old. I assume he's yours." Alessandro's voice was measured, controlled. "What I find interesting is that his genetic markers don't just match yours, Caleb. They match mine." The floor seemed to drop out from under Caleb. He gripped the nearest car for support, his head spinning. "That's not possible." 4 years ago. A charity event. I remember it was raining. Alessandro's eyes were fixed on his face, watching every flicker of emotion. "I was presented with an Omega. I was told he was available. I don't remember much after that. Someone must have dosed my drink. I woke up in a hotel room, alone, with $1,000 on the bedside table." Caleb's throat was so tight he could barely breathe. He remembered that night. He remembered the desperation, the fear, the way he'd taken the money because he'd had no choice. He'd told himself it wasn't real. That the Alpha wouldn't remember. That the drugs had affected his memory too. "You left the money," Alessandro continued. "Like I was a transaction. An asset you'd used and discarded. You're a monster," Caleb managed. "You were with me, and you don't even remember my face. I was drugged. And you," Alessandro stepped closer, and Caleb felt the trap closing. "You were supposed to be a professional. That's what they told me. A service provided by the charity. Clean, discreet. I didn't choose to be with an Omega that night. I didn't choose to be drugged. You think I did that to you? You took the money. You disappeared. And 4 years later, I find out there's a child." Alessandro's voice was sharp. "A child who carries my blood. A potential heir. I didn't know you were anyone important." Caleb's voice broke. "I didn't know who you were. I was just trying to survive." "Survival." Alessandro laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You've been surviving for 4 years. Hiding what you are. Hiding the child. And now you want to fight me in court? On a lease dispute? Leo is my son. He has nothing to do with this. He has everything to do with this." Alessandro's eyes were hard. I have a son. An heir. And he's been raised by, he gestured at the garage, at the oil stains on Caleb's clothes. This. He's been kept in this place, fed cheap food, given no future. Do you know what I could offer him? Schools. Training. A legacy. He's not a legacy. He's a child. He's my child. Alessandro's voice was final. And I will have him. No. Caleb stepped forward, his body between Alessandro and the back room where Leo was playing. You will not take my son. I don't care who you are. I don't care how much money you have. Leo is mine. Alessandro's expression didn't change. I've had a lawyer draw up papers. Full custody. I'll be generous with visitation. I won't sign anything. Then I'll take you to court. Alessandro's voice was chillingly calm. I'll present the evidence that you're an Omega, that you've been operating without a license, that you've been using illegal suppressants, that you've been working in conditions that endanger a child. I'll have your son taken into protective custody while the case is pending. And I'll present the DNA evidence that proves I'm the father, with the resources to give him a far superior life. Leo would never, he doesn't even know you. He'll learn. Alessandro paused. But I'll make you a different offer. One that's better for both of you. Caleb's heart was pounding so hard he could barely hear. What offer? I have a penthouse. A large one. Leo can live there. With you. Alessandro's eyes met his. You can stay. Keep an eye on him, make the transition easier. I'll provide everything, food, clothes, education. You'll be comfortable. Like a prisoner. A guest. With supervision. Alessandro's tone was matter-of-fact. I'm not unreasonable. I know a child needs his mother. But I won't risk him being taken away again. You'll live in the penthouse. You'll have your son. And you'll stop fighting me in court. And if I refuse? Then I take Leo today. Alessandro reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. I have a court order. The judge, family court, was very cooperative when I explained the situation. Unfit Omega mother, illegal substances, no legal identity. I can have social services here within the hour. Caleb stared at the paper. The world was spinning. For years of fighting, of hiding, of surviving, and it all came down to this. This cold, calculating alpha who saw Leo as property and Caleb as an obstacle. 3 days, Caleb said finally. I need 3 days to. 1 day. Alessandro's voice was flat. Tomorrow. I'll send a car at noon. Bring what you need. Everything else, I'll provide. Caleb nodded jerkily. He couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. Alessandro's expression flickered, almost softening for a moment. Almost. Then he turned and walked back to his car, leaving Caleb alone in the grease-stained silence. That night, Caleb held Leo in his arms and tried to explain. He didn't tell his son the truth, the full, ugly truth. He just said they were moving to a new house. A bigger house. With someone important. Leo didn't ask questions. He just looked up at Caleb with his serious brown eyes and said, Is the bad man there? Yes, Caleb whispered. But I'll protect you. I promise. He lay awake all night, watching Leo sleep, memorizing the curve of his cheeks and the flutter of his eyelids. Tomorrow, everything changed. Tomorrow, Caleb would walk into the lion's den. And he would not be eaten alive. The penthouse was obscene. Caleb had known it would be, but knowing and seeing were different. The elevator opened directly into a marble-floored entrance hall with a chandelier that probably cost more than Miller's auto. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city skyline. Every surface gleamed with expensive minimalism. Leo stepped off the elevator in his worn sneakers and mismatched socks, clutching his stuffed wolf. He'd refused to let it go since breakfast. He stared at the windows, his small mouth forming a silent wow. Caleb kept a hand on his shoulder, grounding himself. His duffel bag, one duffel bag, all he'd taken, was clutched in his other hand. Everything else, he'd left behind. The tools, the photographs, the small collection of things that had made the apartment his. Alessandro stood in the living room, arms crossed, watching them arrive. He dressed down today, dark slacks and a cashmere sweater. He looked almost approachable. Almost. "Welcome," he said. "This is your floor. I have the penthouse above." "My floor." Caleb's voice was flat. "There are 4 bedrooms. A kitchen, living space, study. Leo's room is prepared. I've hired staff." "No." Caleb's hand tightened on Leo's shoulder. "No staff. I take care of my son." Alessandro's expression flickered. "A nanny is standard." "I'm not standard. If you want me here, you abide by my rules. I raise Leo. I cook his meals. I clean his room. No staff in our space." Alessandro studied him for a long moment. "Fine. There's a personal chef for the building. I'll have her prepare meals you can eat. If you'd rather cook, the kitchen is fully stocked." Caleb felt like he was being thrown a bone. "I'll cook." "I imagine as much." There was almost a hint of something like amusement in Alessandro's voice. "Your room is the one at the end of the hall. Leo's is beside it. You're not locked in, Caleb. You can move freely within the building." "Within the building. There's a gym, a pool, a garden terrace. I'm not keeping you prisoner." Alessandro paused. "I'm keeping you safe." "Safe from what?" "From yourself." Alessandro's tone was clinical again. "From the decisions you've been making. From the suppressants that are destroying your body." Caleb felt the familiar anger rise. "You don't get to lecture me on health. You drugged me 4 years ago, you ruined my life, and now you—" "I didn't drug you." Alessandro's voice sharpened. "I've already told you. Someone at the event dosed me. There's a reason I have no memory of that night. I was incapacitated. But you remember me leaving." "I remember waking up with a note that said, I didn't take more than I needed. And a $1,000 bill." Alessandro's eyes were cold. "Tell me, Caleb. Was that your note?" Caleb's throat tightened. He hadn't written that note. He'd left in a panic, barely able to walk, with the money he'd been promised clutched in his hand. Someone else had come after him. Someone else had tidied up the room and left $1,000 like a transaction. But he didn't say that. He didn't trust Alessandro. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "I don't have to explain myself to you." "No. You don't." Alessandro's voice was flat. "But I hope, for Leo's sake, you can learn to trust me. At least enough to let me be part of his life." Caleb said nothing. Leo tugged at his sleeve. "Mama, I'm hungry. I'll make you something." Caleb scooped Leo up, still clutching his duffel bag. "Where's the kitchen?" The first week was a standoff. Caleb cooked in silence, using the gleaming stove and expensive pans with the same care he'd used at the garage. He made simple meals, eggs, toast, soup. He refused the personal chef's offerings. He refused the new clothes Alessandro sent up. "I have clothes," he said flatly when the designer boxes arrived. "They're worn. Stained." Alessandro's voice came from the hallway. He'd started visiting more often, finding excuses to drop by. "You're not at the garage anymore." "I'm still me." The boxes sat unopened in the hall for days. Finally, Leo asked, "Mama, can I see?" Caleb sighed. "Go ahead." Leo opened the boxes like they were Christmas presents. Inside, there were child-sized clothes, soft sweaters, sturdy jeans, small sneakers. Leo looked up at Caleb with wide eyes. "Are these for me?" Caleb's heart cracked. "Yes, baby. They're for you. He let Leo keep them. He'd take the clothes, they were for his son, not for him. But he kept his own worn shirts, his faded jeans. He didn't care if Alessandro thought he was poor and pathetic. He cared about staying himself. Alessandro watched. He told himself he was just ensuring the child was safe. That was all. But he found himself studying Caleb when the Omega wasn't looking, the way he moved through the kitchen, the way he held Leo, the way his jaw tightened when he heard Alessandro's footsteps. Caleb was stubborn, defiant, completely unimpressed by money. He was also exhausted. Alessandro could see it in the shadows under his eyes, the way his hands trembled when he thought no one was watching. The suppressants were taking their toll. A doctor, called in after Caleb's first week, had confirmed it. High-dose black market suppressants, impossible to get legally, destroying his liver function and endocrine system. He needed to stop taking them. He refused. Your body is breaking down, Alessandro said one evening, cornering Caleb in the kitchen. That's not your concern. It is. You're the mother of my child. I'm the father of your child. I'm his parent. His only parent until you showed up and decided to take what wasn't yours. Caleb's eyes were burning. Don't pretend this is about concern. This is about control. Alessandro's jaw tightened. It's about making sure my son doesn't grow up without both parents. Then stop trying to replace me. Caleb's voice broke slightly. Stop acting like I'm some hired help. Stop talking about me like I'm an obstacle. I've never. You thought it. You felt it. Caleb stepped closer, his body vibrating with rage. I'm not some golden Omega you purchased from a charity auction. I'm a man. A father. And I will not be reduced to the biology you want to use against me. Alessandro's alpha instincts roared to life. The challenge in Caleb's posture, the defiance in his eyes, it made something primal flare in his chest. He stepped forward, trapping Caleb against the counter. You don't scare me, Caleb said, even as his pulse quickened. You should be scared. I've had people killed for less insolence. Alessandro's voice was low, dangerous. But I'm giving you chances, Caleb. More chances than anyone else would get. Maybe you should consider why that is. I don't need your chances. I don't need your charity. I don't need any of this. Caleb gestured at the gleaming kitchen. I need you to leave my son alone. He's my son too. Then act like it. Caleb shouted. Act like a father, not a corporate raider. He doesn't need schools and legacies. He needs someone to read him bedtime stories and play with his toys and not treat his mother like a servant. Alessandro stared at him, the words hitting like a physical blow. He'd never thought of it that way. He'd been so focused on what he could offer, the resources, the protection, he'd forgotten what Leo actually needed. I don't know how, he admitted finally. Caleb blinked. What? I don't know how. Alessandro stepped back, running a hand through his hair. I never had a father who did those things. My father was Richard Reed. He taught me how to close a deal, how to crush an opponent, how to manage an empire. He never read me a bedtime story. Caleb's anger flickered, replaced by something more complicated. So you don't know how to be a father. That's not an excuse to be a monster. Maybe not. Alessandro's voice was quiet. But it might be a reason to learn. That night, at Leo's request, Alessandro sat in the small chair beside the boy's bed and read from a picture book. His voice was stiff, awkward. He stumbled over the words, held the book too tightly. But Leo was grinning, and Caleb was watching from the doorway, and for the first time, something in Alessandro's chest cracked open. This is good, Leo said, tugging on his sleeve. You're not a bad man. Alessandro stared at him. How do you know? Mama said you might be. But you're not. Leo's small hand patted his arm. You read good. You can come again. It was a tiny olive branch. Alessandro took it like a drowning man. The problem was Richard. Alessandro's father had been watching from a distance. He'd known about Leo. Alessandro had made the mistake of mentioning the heir in a business call, hoping it would get the board off his back about bloodline marriages. Instead, Richard had become obsessed. "I want to meet him," Richard announced, 3 weeks into Caleb's residency. "Not yet." Alessandro stood in his office, phone pressed to his ear, trying to hold steady. "He's still adjusting." "Adjusting? He's a child. Children don't need adjusting. They need proper family." Richard's voice was crisp, dismissive. "I'll come up this weekend. We'll make it an occasion." "There's no occasion." And I said no. "Alexander, you're not a fool. You know that child is the future of this family. He needs to know where he comes from. He needs to be trained. He's 4 years old, father. He doesn't need to be trained for anything. He needs to be a child." Richard was silent for a moment. Then his voice came through, cold and hard. "You've gotten soft. Is that Omega's influence? I told you, you should have brought the boy to me immediately. I'd have found a proper family to raise him. Not some low class." "You will not speak about him that way." Alessandro's voice was ice. "I'll decide when you meet my son. Not before." He hung up, his pulse racing. He'd just crossed a line. Richard would not forget this. Caleb heard the phone call. He'd been passing Alessandro's study, and the raised voices were impossible to miss. He heard Alessandro speaking with barely restrained anger. He heard the name Richard. He heard the contempt in the elder Alpha's voice when he mentioned that Omega. When Alessandro emerged, his face was white. "Your father wants to take Leo," Caleb said. "No. He wants to meet him. That's different." "It's the same." Caleb's voice was steady. "I know how this works. First he wants to meet him. Then he wants to control him. Then he wants to separate him from me." Alessandro met his eyes. "That's not going to happen. Can you guarantee it?" Alessandro was silent. He couldn't guarantee anything. His father had manipulated him his entire life. The board, the company, the family legacy, it was all Richard's network. Caleb saw the uncertainty in his face. "That's what I thought. Give me time. I'll..." "Caleb!" Leo bounded into the hallway, clutching his wolf. "Can we have pizza tonight?" Caleb's expression softened instantly. "Of course, baby. I'll make you pizza with extra cheese." Leo cheered and ran back to his room. Caleb watched him go, then turned back to Alessandro. "I'm not giving him up," he said quietly. "Whatever it takes, I'm not giving him up." "I know." Alessandro stepped closer. "I won't let that happen either. I promise." Caleb's pulse quickened at the proximity. He hated that Alessandro's alpha presence still affected him, even now. Even after everything. "I don't trust your promises," he said, stepping away. "But I'll stay. For Leo." The next week, Caleb collapsed. He'd been feeling it for days, the feverish heat, the nausea, the trembling in his hands. He'd been cutting his suppressants, trying to make them last longer, because he'd noticed Alessandro watching the bottles and suspected he'd try to take them away. It was a mistake. He was in the kitchen, making Leo's breakfast, when the world went gray. He heard Leo's voice calling Mama, and then nothing. He woke up in a hospital bed. The room was private, white and sterile, with monitors beeping softly beside him. There was a familiar smell in the air, wood smoke and winter wind. Alessandro. The Alpha was sitting in a chair beside the bed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "You're awake," Alessandro said. His voice was rough. "Where's Leo?" "With a nanny. I hired someone. I know you said no staff, but I had no choice. You were out for a day and a half." Caleb tried to sit up. His body felt like it was made of lead. You need to lie still. Alessandro stood and gently pushed him back down. His hands were surprisingly gentle. Your suppressants were at toxic levels. Your body was shutting down. The doctors had to detox you. Caleb's eyes widened. My suppressants. Taken away. You're not getting them back. Alessandro's voice was firm. You'll go through withdrawal. It'll be unpleasant. But you'll survive. Better than the alternative. No. Caleb shook his head frantically. I need them. If I'm not suppressed, I'll present. People will know. You'll present as an Omega. So what? Alessandro's eyes were intense. Do you think I care? Do you think anyone in this building will care? You care. You've cared since you met me. You've used it against me. That was before. Alessandro's voice dropped. Before I saw you with Leo. Before I saw what you sacrificed to keep him safe. I'm not going to use this against you, Caleb. I'm going to help you. I don't need your help. You need someone's help. You've been destroying yourself for years. And you've been doing it alone. Alessandro's hand was on his shoulder, warm and steady. I'm not your enemy. Not anymore. Caleb wanted to believe him. He wanted to let go of the fear, the instinctive distrust. But 4 years of survival had taught him not to trust alphas, not to trust anyone with power. He turned his face away. You don't know what you're asking, he said. If I stop taking suppressants, I'll go into heat. I won't be able to function. I'll be at the mercy of every alpha who. You'll be in a penthouse with only me. Alessandro's voice was quiet. And I give you my word, I won't take advantage. I'm not that kind of alpha. Caleb laughed bitterly. You're exactly that kind of alpha. You already took advantage, 4 years ago. In a hotel room, when you didn't even know my name. Alessandro flinched. I told you. I was drugged. I didn't choose. Neither did I. Caleb's voice was raw. You think I chose to present as Omega? To be sold at a charity auction? To end up in a hotel room with someone I didn't know? I had no choice. I've never had a choice. Alessandro was silent for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He sank into the chair beside the bed, his head in his hands. I was terrible to you, he said. In the garage. I called you worthless. I threatened you. I said those things because I thought you were like everyone else. Using your biology to get what you wanted. And now I realize you were just surviving. Alessandro looked up. I've never had to survive. I've never known what it's like to choose between food and medicine. I've been a privileged, arrogant fool, and I'm sorry. Caleb stared at him. An alpha apologizing, truly apologizing, was something he'd never expected. Let me help you, Alessandro continued. Not as an alpha. Not as a billionaire. Just as someone who cares about you and Leo. Please. The word please caught Caleb off guard. He'd never heard Alessandro say it before. I don't know if I can trust you, he said finally. Then let me earn it. Alessandro's voice was almost a whisper. Give me a chance. Withdrawal was brutal. Caleb spent 2 weeks in the private hospital room, shaking and sweating, his body desperately craving the drugs he'd pumped into it for years. Alessandro was there almost constantly, reading reports on his tablet, occasionally reaching out to steady Caleb's hand. The first time Caleb went into heat, it was mild. His body was too weak to produce a full response. But he was still disoriented, feverish, needing comfort. He reached for the nearest warm body, which happened to be Alessandro. He woke up wrapped in the alpha's arms, embarrassed and furious. Let me go, he said, trying to struggle free. Shoo. Alessandro's voice was low, soothing. You were crying in your sleep. You needed someone. Not you. Someone, then. Alessandro didn't let go. I'm not going to do anything, Caleb. I'm just holding you. That's all. Caleb's body was betraying him. His Omega instincts were screaming at him to stay, to accept the comfort. He didn't want this. He didn't want to need anyone. But he was so tired. So alone. He stopped struggling and let himself be held. Alessandro's scent was overwhelming, but it wasn't threatening. It was warm. Protective. Thank you, Caleb whispered. It was the hardest thing he'd ever said. Alessandro's arms tightened slightly. You don't have to thank me. You just have to survive. Leo visited every day. He climbed onto the hospital bed and curled up beside Caleb, telling him about all the things he'd seen in the big building. The garden. The pool. The man who'd been reading him stories, the alpha from the garage. He's nice now, Leo said. He's not scary. Caleb stroked his son's hair. Is he? Yeah. He plays trains with me. He's not very good, but he tries. Leo grinned. And he says you're going to be okay. Did he? He did. He said you were brave. And strong. And that he was proud of you. Caleb felt something twist in his chest. Alessandro had said that? In front of Leo? Can he come read us a story tonight? Leo asked. I don't think. Please, Mama. He's good at it. He does all the voices. Caleb couldn't say no to that face. Fine. He can come. That night, Alessandro read from a book about a dragon and a knight, doing ridiculous voices that made Leo laugh so hard he snorted. Caleb watched from the bed, a reluctant smile tugging at his lips. The story ended, and Leo was asleep in minutes, clutching his stuffed wolf. Thank you, Caleb said quietly. He needed that. Thank you for letting me. Alessandro set the book aside. This is all I ever wanted, you know. To be part of his life. To not be the stranger who just appears. You're not a stranger anymore, Caleb admitted. But you're still a lot to process. Alessandro laughed softly. I know. I'm a lot. I've been told. I've been told too. Caleb paused. Thank you. For being there. When I was sick. When I was. You don't have to thank me. Alessandro reached out, his hand brushing against Caleb's. I told you. I'm not going anywhere. The day Caleb was discharged, he felt like a new man. The withdrawal was over, his system was clean, and for the first time in years, he wasn't operating on a chemical haze. He was also, for the first time in years, openly Omega. It was terrifying. People will know, he said, standing in the penthouse living room, trying not to shake. When I go out, people will know. Let them know. Alessandro's voice was calm. What are they going to do? You're with me. The most powerful alpha in the city. That's not the point. I don't want to be defined by. You won't be. Alessandro stepped closer. You're not defined by your biology, Caleb. You're defined by who you are. A father. A mechanic. Someone who fights for what he believes in. That's not biology. That's choice. Caleb stared at him. When did you get so wise? I had a good teacher. Alessandro's lips curled into a small smile. Someone who didn't let me get away with my nonsense. Richard Reed arrived on a Sunday. Alessandro had tried to prevent it, but his father had connections. He had a key to the building, access to the penthouse, and a stubborn streak that matched Alessandro's own. He walked into the living room like he owned it, like the world belonged to him. Alexander, he said, surveying the room. I see you've been busy. I told you not to come. Yes, well, I don't take orders from you. Richard's gaze swept over the room and landed on Caleb, who was standing frozen in the hallway. Ah. The Omega. You've kept him, I see. His name is Caleb. I don't care what his name is. Richard walked toward Caleb, his alpha presence oppressive. I've heard about you. Suppressants. Hidden identity. A child conceived in unfortunate circumstances. He smirked. You've done well for yourself, landing in my son's penthouse. I didn't land here. I was brought here. Same thing. Richard circled him like a shark. You're an Omega. Omegas find ways to land in comfortable places. It's what you do. Father, stop. Alessandro stepped between them. You're not going to treat him like that. I'll treat him however I want. He's nothing. Less than nothing. A street Omega who seduced my son and trapped him with a child. Caleb's fists clenched. I didn't trap anyone. I was drugged, same as him. Sure you were. Richard laughed. That's a convenient story, isn't it? You were drugged, you were helpless, you were just a victim. And now you're living in a penthouse, eating expensive food, raising a child who's my son's heir. I never wanted any of this. I never. Didn't you? Richard stepped closer, close enough that Caleb could smell the expensive cologne and the underlying alpha aggression. You saw a vulnerable alpha, you saw an opportunity, and you took it. That's what Omegas do. It's in your nature. Get away from him. Alessandro's voice was a growl, the alpha in him surfacing fully. Now. Cute. You're protecting your investment. Richard turned to his son. You're wasting your time with this trash. The board expects you to marry properly, a high-blood alpha family. Not some street Omega and his bastard. Leo is not a bastard. He's my son. Your son, conceived in a hotel room with a stranger. Do you think that's a legacy? Do you think that's going to inspire confidence in the board? Richard shook his head. You need to do the right thing. Hand the boy over to me. I'll find a proper family to raise him. Over my dead body. Don't be dramatic. Richard reached out and grabbed Caleb's arm. You're going to tell me the truth. You orchestrated this whole thing, didn't you? The pregnancy, the hiding, the sudden appearance. You planned it. Let go of me. Caleb's voice was cold. I didn't plan anything. I didn't even know who he was until he showed up at my garage. Liar. Take your hand off him. Alessandro stepped between them, his eyes blazing. I won't ask again. Richard released Caleb's arm, but his eyes were narrowed. You've gotten soft, Alexander. This Omega has been playing you from the beginning, and you're too stupid to see it. I see exactly what's happening. Alessandro's voice was dangerously quiet. I see my father, a man who's never respected anyone in his life, trying to take what's mine. And I'm telling you, not going to happen. Richard's face reddened. You dare. I dare. Alessandro stepped forward, his alpha presence radiating power. You're not welcome here. You're not going to meet Leo. You're not going to touch Caleb again. And if you ever try to interfere with my family again, I will make your life a living hell. Is that understood? Richard stared at him, momentarily speechless. Then he laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You think you can threaten me? I built you. I made you. Everything you have, you owe to me. Everything I have, I earned. Alessandro's voice was ice. And everything I have, I can lose. I'm prepared to lose it all. Are you prepared to lose your empire? The silence stretched between them. Then Richard turned and walked out. At the door, he paused. This isn't over. You know that, right? You can't hide forever. Get out. Richard left, and the door slammed behind him. The room was silent. Caleb was shaking. He couldn't stop. His body was still trembling from the confrontation, from the sheer alpha power that had filled the room. He was aware of Alessandro turning to him, reaching out. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I'm fine." Caleb stepped back. "I need to check on Leo. He's in his room." He didn't hear any of that. Alessandro's voice was gentle. "Caleb, look at me." Caleb looked up. Alessandro's eyes were burning with something, fury, protectiveness, something deeper. "Nothing's going to happen to you. Or to Leo. I promise." "You can't promise that." "I can." Alessandro stepped closer, taking Caleb's hands. "I have resources. Lawyers. Security. I can protect you. You have to let me." "I don't need protecting. Everyone needs protecting sometimes." Alessandro's grip was warm. "You protected Leo for 4 years. Let me protect you for a while." Caleb's throat was tight. He wanted to pull away. He wanted to stay. "I don't know how to let someone protect me," he admitted. "That's okay. I'll teach you." That night, Leo asked about the angry man. "He was Grandpa Richard," Alessandro said, kneeling beside the boy's bed. "He's not going to be around much." "Why was he angry?" "Because he's not used to people saying no to him." "But I said no. A lot." Leo nodded solemnly. "He was scary. Mama was scared." Alessandro's chest tightened. "I'll make sure he's never around again. I promise." "You're a good alpha," Leo said, patting his cheek. "You protect Mama. That's what good alphas do." Alessandro stared at him. "Who told you that?" "Nobody. I just know." Leo snuggled into his pillow. "You're like the knights in the stories. You fight the bad guys." Alessandro felt something crack in his chest. "I'll always fight for you, Leo. Both of you." The next months were a slow, careful dance. Caleb didn't trust Alessandro. Not fully. But he was learning to let the alpha in. Small things, leaving Leo with him for an hour while he showered. Accepting the new tools Alessandro bought for the garage he'd eventually, maybe, reopen. Letting himself be hugged when the weight of everything became too much. It was the hugs that surprised him most. Alessandro was a physical person, hands on shoulders, fingers brushing wrists, arms wrapping around Caleb when he was having a hard day. It was never inappropriate. It was just comforting. Warm. "You're doing it again," Caleb said one evening, when Alessandro's hand rested on his lower back as they walked through the garden. "Doing what?" "Touching me. You touch me all the time." Alessandro paused. "Does it bother you?" Caleb thought about it. It didn't bother him. It made him feel safe. Protected. Like someone was paying attention, caring about his comfort. "No," he admitted. "It doesn't bother me." Alessandro's lips curved. "Good." The turning point came on a rainy night. Caleb was in his room, trying to sleep, when the nightmares came. Old memories, the charity event, the hotel room, the feeling of being used and discarded. He woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, his Omega instincts screaming. He stumbled out of bed and into the hallway. The penthouse was dark, the rain pounding against the windows. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he needed someone. Alessandro's door was open. He was sitting up in bed, reading, and he looked up when Caleb appeared in the doorway. "Couldn't sleep?" Caleb shook his head. I had a dream. About that night." Alessandro's expression shifted. He set aside his book and held out his arms. "Come here." Caleb walked to the bed and let himself be pulled close. The alpha's warmth was immediate, his scent calming. They lay there, tangled together, while the rain hammered against the windows. "Tell me about the dream," Alessandro murmured. "Same one." Caleb's voice was muffled against Alessandro's chest. The hotel room. Waking up alone. The money on the table. I didn't take it, you know. The $1,000. Someone else took it. Alessandro was still. What? I left it. I didn't want it. But I was so scared, and I couldn't remember anything, and I thought if I stayed, Caleb's voice broke. I thought they'd find me. The people who dosed you. I thought they'd kill me. Alessandro's arms tightened. No one's going to kill you. That's not going to happen. You don't know that. You don't know who they were. I'll find out. Alessandro's voice was grim. I've been looking into it. The charity event, the people who were there. Someone had a motive. I'm going to find them. Why? Because I need to know who ruined that night. Alessandro rested his chin on Caleb's head. And because you deserve to know the truth. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then he whispered, "Thank you." The rain kept falling, and they stayed wrapped around each other, two strangers learning to be something more. The next morning, Caleb woke up alone in Alessandro's bed. The Alpha was already up, doing something in the kitchen. Caleb could hear the clatter of pans. He sat up, feeling strangely bereft. Then he saw the note on the nightstand. Asterisk, you were sleeping so peacefully. I didn't want to wake you. I made breakfast, if you're hungry. Ah, asterisk. Caleb smiled. It was the first genuine smile he'd felt in years. Leo was growing attached to Alessandro. It was impossible to miss. He's teaching me about cars, Leo announced one day, his face bright. He has pictures of all the fast ones. He said I can ride in his red car when I'm older. That's nice, Caleb said carefully. Do you like him? Yeah. Leo climbed onto the couch and snuggled against his mother. He's my other daddy, right? Caleb's heart skipped. He's your father. Yes. Are you going to marry him? What? No. Caleb laughed, a little too quickly. We're not, we're just friends. Leo looked unconvinced. He hugs you a lot. He hugs you too. That's different. He hugs me because I'm small. He hugs you because he likes you. Leo's small face was serious. You should marry him. Then we'd all be together. Caleb couldn't respond. The thought was too overwhelming. He loved Leo more than anything in the world. He was learning to trust Alessandro. But marriage? Bonding? It was too much. Too fast. Let's talk about this later, he said. Leo shrugged. Okay. But he's good for you, Mama. You smile more. Caleb's eyes filled with tears. He hugged his son close and buried his face in his hair. Richard Reed didn't give up. 3 weeks after his failed visit, he filed a petition in family court. He claimed that Caleb was an unfit parent, that Alessandro was being manipulated, and that Leo would be better off in a proper alpha household. He wanted custody. He wanted to take Caleb's son. Alessandro didn't tell Caleb. He didn't want to worry him. Instead, he summoned the best lawyers money could buy and prepared to fight. Richard is going to lose, his lawyer said. He has no standing. He's the grandfather, not the father. And his claims about Caleb are unsubstantiated. He's going to try to make them substantiated, Alessandro said grimly. He'll hire private investigators. He'll dig up dirt. He's not going to make it easy. Then we make it harder. We show that Caleb is a fit parent. We show that Leo is happy and healthy. We show that Richard has no right to interfere. Alessandro nodded. Do it. Caleb found out anyway. A letter arrived in the mail, addressed to him. It was from Richard's lawyers, informing him of the custody petition and the upcoming hearing. He read it 3 times, his hands shaking. When Alessandro came home that evening, Caleb was waiting in the living room. You were going to keep this from me? Alessandro froze. You weren't supposed to see that. I found it in the mail. It was addressed to me. Caleb held up the letter. Your father is trying to take my son. And you were going to handle it without telling me? Because I didn't want you to worry. I've got it under control. Under control? Caleb's voice rose. This is my son we're talking about. My son. My life. And you think you can protect me from the truth? I was trying to protect you. Stop protecting me. Caleb shouted. Stop treating me like I'm fragile. Like I can't handle things. I've been handling things my whole life. I don't need you to shield me from reality. Alessandro stepped closer, his eyes blazing. I know you can handle things. You're the strongest person I've ever met. But I also know you've been under so much stress, and I didn't want to add more. Adding more stress is not your decision. It's mine. Caleb's voice was raw. I need to know what's happening. I need to be part of the fight, not just someone you're protecting from the sidelines. Alessandro stared at him. Then he sighed. You're right. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Just, let me in. Let me be part of this. I will. Alessandro stepped closer, close enough to touch. We're in this together. You and me. Caleb's eyes searched his. Together? Together. Alessandro's hand came up to cup his face. I'm not going to let Richard take Leo. I'll fight him with everything I have. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Caleb hesitated. Then he nodded. I can try. That's all I ask. The custody hearing was a battle. Richard brought lawyers, witnesses, private investigators. He tried to paint Caleb as unstable, unfit, a danger to Leo's well-being. He produced medical records, Caleb's illegal suppressants, his hospitalizations, his history of hiding his Omega identity. Alessandro's lawyers countered with evidence of their own. Leo's health records. His happiness. The stability of the penthouse environment. Character witnesses from everyone who'd come into contact with Caleb, the garage employees, the neighbors who'd watched him raise Leo alone. And then Alessandro took the stand. Your Honor, he said, I'm here because my father is trying to take my son. And I'm not going to let that happen. Richard's lawyer jumped in. Your father is trying to provide a better environment for the child. You yourself have admitted that Leo's mother is one of the best parents I've ever known. Alessandro's voice was clear and steady. Caleb Reed raised his son alone for 4 years. He worked 14-hour days to provide for him. He's never asked for anything. He's never tried to use Leo for money or status. I object, Richard's lawyer said. This is irrelevant. Your Honor, let me finish. Alessandro looked at the judge. Before I met Caleb, I was a different person. I saw people as assets, relationships as transactions. Caleb taught me that family isn't about biology. It's about love. It's about sacrifice. It's about showing up every day, even when it's hard. He paused. My father sees Leo as a legacy. A name to be carried forward. But Leo isn't a name. He's a child. He needs love and stability and people who care about him, not people who want to own him. That's what Caleb has been giving him for 4 years. That's what I want to keep giving him. Together. The courtroom was silent. I've never been more certain of anything in my life, Alessandro continued. I don't want Leo to be raised the way I was, cold, calculating, devoid of affection. I want him to be raised with warmth and love. And that starts with his mother, Caleb. The person who fought for him when no one else would. He looked at Richard. My father can't take that away. He can try, but he'll fail. Because I'll fight him every step of the way. I'll give up my fortune, my company, my name, everything, before I let him take Leo from Caleb. The judge looked at Alessandro for a long moment. Then he nodded. This court rules in favor of the father and the mother, he said. The child will remain in their custody. And I'd like to commend them for their bravery in fighting for what's right. Richard's face was white. He stood abruptly and walked out of the courtroom, his lawyers scrambling behind him. Caleb collapsed into Alessandro's arms. It's over, he whispered. It's really over. I told you. Alessandro's voice was fierce. I wasn't going to let him win. A year later, Caleb stood in the newly renovated garage, running his hands over the gleaming equipment. The building had been a gift. Alessandro had bought the property, renovated it, and handed over the deed with a simple note, * for Leo. For you. For us, *. I can't accept this, Caleb had said at the time. It's not a gift. It's an investment. Alessandro's voice had been casual, but his eyes were soft. You're a master mechanic. You deserve a place to do what you love. And Leo deserves to see his mother doing what he loves. Caleb had argued for an hour. Then he'd hugged Alessandro so tightly the alpha had laughed and said he couldn't breathe. Now, standing in the bright, clean garage, Caleb felt something he hadn't felt in years, hope. The business was thriving. Leo was happy. And Alessandro? You're brooding, Alessandro said, appearing in the doorway. I can always tell. I'm not brooding. I'm appreciating. It's called brooding. I've seen you do it for over a year now. Alessandro walked over and wrapped his arms around Caleb from behind. What are you thinking about? Everything. Nothing. Caleb leaned back into the embrace. I'm thinking about how different my life is. How I used to be so afraid. And now I'm not. That's a good change. It's a terrifying change. Caleb turned in his arms. I've been independent my whole life. Relying on someone else, it's hard. You don't have to rely on me. You can stand on your own. I just want to be there. Beside you. Caleb smiled. You're terrible at that, you know. The romantic gestures. I'm learning. Alessandro's voice was warm. I have a good teacher. The night Leo turned 6, they threw a small party. It was just the 3 of them, plus a few of Leo's friends from school. There was cake and balloons and presents, and Leo was so happy he practically glowed. After the party, when Leo was asleep and the mess was cleaned up, Caleb and Alessandro sat on the balcony overlooking the city. I love him, Alessandro said, breaking the comfortable silence. I love him more than I ever thought I could love anyone. And I love you too, Caleb. I've been trying to find the right words, but they always fail me. So I'm just going to say it, I love you. Caleb looked at him, his heart pounding. You do? I do. Alessandro reached out and took his hand. I know I'm not easy. I know I've made mistakes. But I want to be better. For you. For Leo. For us. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Then he squeezed Alessandro's hand. I love you too, he said. I didn't think I could. After everything. But you proved me wrong. You showed me that not all alphas are the same. That there's someone who sees me for who I am, not what I am. Alessandro pulled him close. That's all I ever wanted. To be seen. They sat there, wrapped around each other, watching the city lights flicker below. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was real. And it was theirs. The next year brought changes. Caleb's garage was successful. He'd hired 2 more mechanics, both Omegas he'd found struggling in the system. He paid them fairly and gave them flexible hours. It wasn't charity, it was solidarity. Alessandro stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Reed Corporation, taking on a consulting role that left him more time for family. Richard had been removed from the board after a scandal, one Alessandro had quietly engineered. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. Leo was growing fast, his alpha traits becoming more pronounced. He was protective of his mother, fiercely loyal to Alessandro, and determined to make his own way in the world. And Caleb and Alessandro, they were something. Not bonded, not married, but something deeper. A partnership. A promise. An ongoing conversation about what it meant to be family. One night, when the city was quiet and Leo was asleep, Alessandro knelt in front of Caleb. "I know you don't like surprises," he said. "But I need to ask you something." Caleb's heart stopped. "What?" Alessandro pulled out a small box and opened it. Inside was a ring, simple, elegant, a band of silver and something that looked like stars. "I know you don't need this," he said. "I know you've built your own life, your own strength. You don't need me to complete you. But I want you to know that I choose you. I choose you every day. And I'll keep choosing you, if you'll let me." Caleb was crying. He couldn't help it. "Yes," he said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Alessandro slid the ring onto his finger. Then he pulled Caleb into a kiss, soft, slow, full of promises. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too." 5 years later, Caleb looked out the window of the penthouse and watched Alessandro teaching Leo how to ride a bike in the garden below. Leo was 8 now, all long limbs and determined concentration. Alessandro jogged beside him, shouting encouragement. "I've got it!" Leo yelled, wobbling. "Look, Mama! I've got it!" Caleb waved. His heart was full. The garage was thriving. He'd expanded, opened a second location, started a program for Omega youth who wanted to learn the trade. He'd finally gotten the respect he deserved. And Alessandro had become everything Caleb never knew he needed. Patient, kind, fiercely protective. He'd learned to be a father, a partner, a man who valued what mattered. When the bike lesson was over, Alessandro and Leo came inside, both flushed with pride. "Did you see?" Leo demanded. "I did it." "I saw." Caleb kissed his forehead. "You were incredible." Alessandro leaned down and kissed Caleb. "So were you. Both of you." Leo made a gagging noise. "Gross. I'm going to my room." As the boy ran off, Alessandro pulled Caleb close. "I never thought I'd have this," he said quietly. "A family. A home. Someone who chooses me, not my money." "You deserve it," Caleb said. "You earned it. Only because you taught me how." Alessandro rested his forehead against Caleb's. "Thank you. For everything." Caleb smiled. "Thank you for being worth it." They stood there, wrapped in each other, as the city hummed below them. It wasn't perfect. It was real. It was theirs.